Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. We're back.
We are back. How
We are
are you?
back. I am good. We are back. And to those who are watching, welcome to Spiritual Shift, our weekly Sunday discussion that we're doing. We're back in the
Good.
flow. My name is Kenya. Yes, I am Kenya. And if you're watching on Kenya MJ Music, thank you for watching. Or if you're watching on Facebook, hello. Put something in the comments. Let us know you're here. Who are you? Introduce just quick so people know, the good people know who you are. I mean, you don't have to say your history. Just what's your name and, you know, who are you?
Who are you? Where you from? What you about?
Where you from? What you about?
Absolutely. Well, how you been, Kenya MJ? How you been? How you
You
been?
didn't say who you are. You're who? You're I know it says your name right there, but
Right there. I'm
okay, he's
Barry Riley. How's everybody doing? Half
this is
of
this
half of spiritual shift. Um,
yes.
so yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah. And this is the space we come to each Sunday where we have some thought-provoking discussions around spirituality. And if you are new here and you're watching on YouTube, we ask that you make sure you subscribe and like this video, share it. If you're watching in live time, we'd love to have comments. If you're watching in the future, still you can put comments. And today, what is that? What is our topic as it's scrolling on the bottom there? Barry, what are we
When
digging in today?
when did God become a man? When did God? It's so funny because as I was just I always like to do, additional research, additional just kind of perspective. So whenever I was going into my little rabbit holes to kind of dig up some information, it was always it wasn't what we're going to talk about today specifically. It was sort of like God became a man because God came down. It was very Christian centered thinking that we were talking about when did God become a man and come
Oh,
on
meaning Jesus. Yeah.
Jesus, all of this. I was just like, this
Right.
is not what I'm trying to get to. I want so it's a very apropos topic. It's gonna, once we break into it, it's gonna be some people may be thinking when did God become a man, as in, oh, when he incarnated in Jesus.
Right.
That's when he became a man.
Right.
No, that's not what we're talking
That's not what we're talking about. So I want to put this as a disclaimer. Please understand this is spiritual shift. So that means everything we talk about is pushing us to get in that growth mindset and to shift in our perspective for a moment, just for a moment. If you decide you want to stay in the shift, you are free to. If you decide you want to shift back, absolutely. But the whole point of these discussions, it's never to be predictable of what it's not teaching what's already necessarily the norm or the narrative. It's always to attempt to push us out of the narrative. So these questions we've been asking this month, we're exploring this whole concept of God this month. And so last week, what was the title last week, Barry?
about. When did God start living in the sky?
Right. So it's
When
not
did
that God lives in the sky. We were shifting the narrative about that. And so today, when did God become a man? We're shifting and exploring that narrative as well. And not to say we're not really on the, like you said, not on the plane about, not the plane or the field or whatever regarding Jesus, but more about this idea that when we refer to God and God's energy, how we humanize God or make God a gender, and when did that happen, and why do we do that, and how does that influence us, and should we should we move or shift? Right? Am I on the right page, or
right,
what are your
right, absolutely. I mean, there's no growth without shift. There's no growth. You can't grow in anything that you're doing, whatever area in your life. You cannot grow You cannot evolve. You aren't going to get bigger, better, more, whatever, unless you shift. You're going to have to shift some kind of way. So that's what these talks are about. That shift is about. Um, yeah, that's what it
Yeah.
is.
So our format of how we've been doing this is Barry kind of takes the lead, and I pose questions, and then he takes the lead in answering, and then I'll maybe add, my little 2 cents or a lot of 2 cents
A nickel,
into the disc, a nickel and a quarter
dollar
sometimes.
bill,
And
but it's always good stuff. I mean, that's kind of like how we get down. I put in my couple pennies, and then you add your
I
sauce
add
to
my
it.
dime. I add my dime, yeah, or my quarter or my dollar bill. So
Right.
before we're gonna, we have, we try to keep these no more than 40 to 45 minutes. So, and try to spend at least a good 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so, really talking about the topic and me posing the questions. We ask that you stay tuned because at the end we have some offerings, but I do want to just mention at the top, we have a community that we're building. If these videos are resonating for you, if what we're talking about is interesting and you want to continue to talk and explore kind of this idea of reimagining your spirituality, or going a little bit beyond maybe what you were taught or what you learn or experience day to day, then we want you to be a part of our community. And so we have a free community on Patreon. And so I'm going to share more how you can join that. We've got an upcoming free webinar that's going to be the prelude to a 4-session class that Barry's going to be doing to really kind of help those who really do recognize they want to go deeper. They want to go a little bit maybe beyond what they have always understood because they're wanting different things in their life. And so he's got a course coming up. So we'll share how you can get onto those things after we explore this question. So make sure you're staying watching. All right. Barry, my first question to you. All right, y'all know I got notes. I can't memorize
I'm
everything.
ready. I'm ready.
In your understanding, and we should let people, again, remind people that you did attend seminary school, you do have a
Yeah,
master's in divinity, so you're looking at
yeah.
this not just from a personal lens but also from a scholarly space. But when did people, in your understanding, when did people start to think of God as a man, or having these human like qualities? When did you think this started?
Um, well, it's always so
That's a big
that's
question.
always
It's a big question.
right. That's a big question. That's kind of the anthropomorphism. I'm trying to think of the word really.
That's a big word too.
all it means all it means is that you're giving something human qualities. So, giving God, or giving something that we don't have a concept of, um, as a physical person, giving them human-like qualities. That's all that word means. But that kind of has always it's been around for thousands of years. That's been around for thousands of years. Just giving because humanity. Um, I'm gonna skip over some. So there was a time period, according to ancient history or whatever, that the gods, the people that we call gods, there was more than one. There's always been more than one. Lived here on the earth. Okay, so after that period, when those beings left the earth, um, no one had any experience of a god. So you had to give them human-like qualities so that we could relate to these exalted beings. So that's kind of
Mm,
always been around.
okay.
That's been around for a long time. Um, Now I'll let you prompt. you want me to just keep going into
Well, no, we can go to the next question because one of the
because
things I want and welcome, I see someone put in the chat. I know this person. It's Gihy. I know her real name, but she may not want me to say her real name. But she was saying she wants to get a
yeah,
master's in divinity and looking at
awesome,
seminaries now for next year. So
awesome.
you may have to get in. I may have to get you in touch with Barry so he can talk more about that. But I want to make sure we're just real clear. This is not a discussion about Jesus, because I know that when we talk about big God becoming a man, we quickly will say, oh, you mean when he incarnated as Jesus? We're not talking about Jesus today. We're actually talking about how we humanize and genderize God. So when we talk about God and we say he, or God's going to be mad at me, or God's not going to like it if I do this, that's a humanizing of God to suggest that God has feelings and that God has emotions and that God is going to decide how he feels about you, or if that's what we're kind of questioning
Right,
today. When did that whole idea that God is humanized and has these emotions and therefore you've got to get God's approval? That's
right,
where, so my next
right,
question then for you, let me make sure I pull it up, is how does seeing God as a man, and that can be literally gender man, or just
right.
human, affect how people relate to or understand God?
Right. So like I said, like humanizing God, the God concept, the God being, that's existed. Like since we had a concept of a higher being, um, to humanize them so that we could relate. Now, when God actually be, became really just a man, that's simple, and it's historical. You can go and look this up yourself. It's really right around the time that the Roman Empire was declining and the the world religion of Christianity was being put together and built inside of what became the Roman Catholic Church. When that happened, when the Roman Catholic Church began to ascend as a powerful geopolitical force, that's when the concept of the God in the sky and he's a man and he's the father, that's when it really began to happen. Because the thing is that even like we don't even have to go back to Kemet in Egypt in Africa and talk about in Rome there were temples, there were goddess temples. There were very elaborate and very well, it was a plethora of cults and temples that worshiped the goddess in Rome.
The
In
goddess,
Greece, the
the
goddess,
goddess,
the goddess in Rome,
goddess. Yeah.
in Greek. So
Mhm.
even during that era, the Greco-Roman era, the goddess was still very much revered, was still very much worshipped, was still very much a part of people's understanding of a deity. And she was a goddess, she was a woman, she was female, and they worship her, as well as the male god, and we have a history, like we know all those names as well, those male gods. But it wasn't until the changing happened when Christianity
Mm,
began to really rise up through the Catholic Church. Because
mhm.
I have to just explain to people that before the Roman Catholic Church, it was just it was a whole bunch of stuff. It was a whole bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? Religions, cults, all kind of stuff. So as the Roman Empire began to decline and the Catholic Church began to emerge, um, the Catholic Church kind of rearranged everything as far as religion was concerned, used Christianity to say, okay, this is going to be this version of Christianity is going to be what we, or this version of religion is going to be what we push, and God is going to be a man.
Mm,
He's going to look like
mm,
this, and he's going to,
mm,
and it was forced because
mm,
because you're talking about generations of people that were steeped in their own ideologies,
mhm,
all
mhm,
kinds of stuff. So and then everything. So once the Catholic Church really got established, the Roman Catholic Church really got established, and then you had the Reformation. So that came out of that. So everything after that, if you Kojic, if you Baptist, if you Methodist, if you Holiness, if you if you're a Mormon, if you Seventh Day Adventist, I don't care what you are. My denomination that I grew up in, um, it all came out of the Roman Catholic Church. So it had a lot of those same. So God was still a man. He was still in the sky.
mm,
So that's when that
mm,
that's why we are where we are today. That
mm.
man, he's in the sky.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are your beliefs? I mean, I obviously don't see God as man. I see God as energy and I see God as vast. And so then my understanding and my ability to relate to God concepts, I think is quite broad because I don't understand God in a human way. And I'm wondering for you personally how you see it and how can others maybe start thinking about this? Because to me, when we keep trying to make God, it's one thing to say Jesus, but when we start to make God into this man, it
Mhm,
really, to me, limits our ability to see this broad spectrum of living that
mhm,
can happen for us because we're doing things based on we have to be careful. If to me, humanizing God makes us now feel judged in a way of like how my mama judges me or my friend, and so now I'm like making God even smaller in in God's power. So anyway, how do you understand God to
mhm.
be for
So
you?
we've had lots of discussions about this, you and I,
We
as
do. I had to pretend like I don't know. Okay, so anyway, go ahead.
no, no, no. I mean, we because in our discussions about this, I told you really how I see God. But you explained how you see God, and this was a while ago. And I've had a lot of time to contemplate both our perspectives. And I I think there's value. I do think there's a value in humanizing the God concept if you can put it in perspective, because we are human and we have to be able to relate to something that in order for us to communicate with it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So in order for us to communicate with it, in order for us to commune with it, in order for us to even, engage with it on any level, you have to understand the components of what it is that you're trying to communicate. So that's one thing. And there's
Okay.
there's a you can stay there. I think staying there is where we get into the mud a bit, because
Okay.
like you were just saying, we lessen God. We if you just stay there and you think that God is some dude with some legs and a beard, then you then brought this infinite concept down to, like, you could put it in your pocket or something, or you could just set it on your mantle and pick it up like whenever you want. That's kind of like what it feels like. Now, at the same time, how I have come to understand the God concept is that it is, and it's broad as I can understand it. It's really the laws and the universe, how it operates in every
Mm,
aspect,
mm.
from the stars and the moon and the sun, the air, rain, frogs, snakes, trees, apples, oranges, concrete, us human beings, our soul, like every single thing, everything that exists is a part of this concept that people call God. And I'm only using the
Mhm.
word God so that people understand that I'm
Absolutely.
talking about this being,
Mhm.
this infinite consciousness. So I'm using the word God so people understand. So, in this particular consciousness that we call God or whatever, operates, like, has set up this universe under basically rules and regulations, laws. They're laws.
Mhm.
Everything operates under laws. And
Mm.
the better we can align ourselves, attune ourselves to those laws, the better we can operate and and create what it is that we want to create here. The better we
Mm.
can align ourselves with that. So just look at anything that's going on in your life. Anything. Um, no, let me back up. Let me back up. I got to back up. Where are we at with time? Okay.
I know. I'm like, we only got 8 minutes till 30. Okay, when you say, well,
Put a pin in it.
what
Put
can,
put a pin in that because I have to explain something else. I have to explain something
okay.
else.
All right, go for it, baby.
Okay, so
Yes.
according to, I'm going to use the Bible with this because we have
Okay.
a good explanation of this in the Bible.
Okay.
In the Old Testament, when the God figure comes and engages with a group of people, we'll call them Israel, comes to Israel and says, I'm going to be your God, you're going to be my people, we're going to have this relationship, I'm going to do this for you, and in return, you're going to do this for me. Okay,
Mhm.
boom. So put a pin in that.
Okay.
Now, the whole concept that we've been operating under without really even knowing it is that the only reason to engage with God is so that we can get something and be something and do something, right? Sort of, kind
I
of.
mean, I think that you're saying
Right?
that, well, yeah, I think that's
Whatever it
what
is,
people
whatever it
do.
is, you
Yeah.
engage with this God concept so that you can't go to, so that you won't go to hell, or that you can have a good life here, or
Mhm.
just think about when do we so it when do we when do we go to God and why do we go to God? We go to God because we want
That
something.
should be next week's. That's
We
gonna be
go,
next week's
we,
question.
we go to
When
God when
do
we
you
need
go to God?
something, and then we go to God so that something won't happen to us. That's the reason why we go to God, right?
Okay, so
What
hold
the
on,
reason
hold on,
why
hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. When you say that, you're making a hypothetical, or are you that's a very general statement that you just said. Are you saying that
my-
typically the narrative is that?
typically
Okay.
ask
All right.
anyone why they engage with God. Why do you
To
care
get
about God?
something. Mhm.
Either to get something, either to prevent something from happening, or to, yeah, to
It's
get
like
something, or
God is the crisis line almost, or
something
like
like
the
that. Right.
okay.
On one
Mhm.
hand, it's insurance.
Right.
On
Okay.
the
That's
other
a good word.
hand,
I like that.
it's like I need this to, I need you to help me with this in my life. Okay.
Gotcha.
So I had to
Right.
mention that because I had to frame why we even why we even engage with the God concept. I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying, as you asked me how I approach the God concept, well, this is how. I have to break it all the way down for me. So for me, I didn't want to just engage with the God concept because I needed something, I wanted something, or I wanted to prevent something. Because think about it, if we're looking at God in a human construct, would you want someone to just come to you, say, "Hey, Kenya, can I get this?" Like every time they rung your phone, that's all they're calling you for. So when
Ooh.
you see the number, you're like, "Ah, all they want is the."
Ooh.
So you see what I'm saying? So this is
Ooh.
so this is why this is what I
Ooh.
personally wanted to get out
Okay, you
of that.
just said a word. Okay, okay, Barry, you just I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Go ahead. Go
that
ahead.
was huge because we all know we don't want to be with that friend that only calls us when they need something.
Only call you. You're not answering that call. You're not answering. You'll be like,
You don't
ah,
want to
nah,
be with that friend. And you also don't want that friend that's just always making sure you're there just in
just in
case.
case.
Like you going to
Just
be
in
there
case.
just in case, but not necessarily being in full relationship.
Right. In full relationship. So
Mhm.
let me get back to your question. I'm going to finish this question. We're going to the next one. So how I had to understand for myself is like, well, how can I be in relationship with this being who is so much greater than me? How like how am I going to do that? The answer for me was to evolve myself according to what this consciousness has already set up. This consciousness, this being, this God person being has already set up a whole process for us to evolve ourselves to a level where we can then start really placing ourselves on the God path because that's why we're here is to become little G's. So we
Mm,
can't become a little
mm,
G always like, oh God, can I, Lord, can I get this? Can I get this? Can I, we can't become little G's in that model. We
mm,
have to put
mm,
ourselves on the path of little G hood. And that's that's how I look at the God concept is that
mm. Interesting.
it's a whole set of laws, understanding spiritual principles that you align yourself with. We used to they, they're called it's called a spiritual system. And it exists inside of Christianity. It's just that it's been ripped out of it. It's been like the guts
Mm,
of all that have been taken out of Western religions. Like you got to
yeah.
really dig and you have to really know how to get at them. So that's kind of how I approach the God concept and how I look at it. Okay.
Wow. That was really good. I mean, there were so many things you said that were so good, and that I hope that people. I know that might have felt layered for people, but I think it's so important that the reason why we do are even having these conversations is so that we can broaden our relationship with our soul, with a God energy, with higher self, with source. And so how you just said that is in terms of, we're working in a way to be the little G's or to have, to really become the energy of what God is. And if we keep making God into this man or this human that's over there, that's only going to give me when I need and only protect me when I need, then we're missing all these other layers of this relationship that God is energetically giving us all the time. And it's super deep. Oh, okay. So listen, we're at the 5:30, so we've got about 10 more minutes. What we're going to 10, no more than 15. If you are watching, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give us a comment, a like. Make sure you share this with anybody that you think might be interested. If this is resonating for you, keep tuning in. We're going to do one more question. But before we do one more question, I do want to say how you can kind of continue to be in community with us. Barry has an upcoming class. If you're liking how he's explaining this and this is interesting, I really think you should do this class. We're going to be doing a free webinar just to give you a little bit of a teaser so that you can get a taste of what that feels like. But while I put some information in our scroll, we have another question though related to this topic of when did God become a man. So still tap in because we've got about 10 minutes or so. But before we do that last question, Barry, you have this class. I know last week I got all excited and I was like, oh, and so if you can, it's called Beyond Belief, Faith Reimagined 4-session course. We have a wait list for you to join. Again, if this information, I mean, whether you come to this class or not, we're going to still come here each Sunday, except for the last Sunday of each month. But can maybe you explain a little bit about this 4-session, just briefly, quickly, and people just make sure you can go to patreon.com/spiritual shift and you can, join the wait list, and that's completely free.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So just real quick, like a 30-second recap of like who I am. So um I was raised in a very fundamental evangelical Christian church. Um and like super, 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 super evangelical fundamental. I was completely loved it, grew up in it. Um, Eventually went to seminary because I've always had this thing that people call a calling on your life. I've always had this forever since I was a kid. I ended up going to seminary, and halfway through seminary, like digging through all of the research and the stuff, I realized that I couldn't become a pastor because I still had so many questions, and seminary wasn't really answering them to my satisfaction because I was Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. I wanted to be like Jesus. Still do, still do. However, there's a whole little thing to that. So I ended up leaving. I ended up graduating. I finished my seminary degree, graduated, but I didn't go in. I was already in the ministry. I ended up pivoting and going on my own faith journey. So, beyond belief, what this course is really about going deeper into your own faith journey. Whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, you don't have a religion, you don't really know what you believe, it doesn't matter. It's called Beyond Belief. So we're gonna dig into um, kind of how to go deeper into what you believe and what it is. If you want a richer spiritual experience, how you tap into that. Um, how do you create a spiritual discipline? How do you create a spiritual life? How do you create spiritual practices? How do you begin to evolve your soul while you're here in this
Mm,
life? That's really what Beyond Belief is about. So, love to see
I
you
love it.
there. Love to see you join. Yep.
Absolutely. So we hope that you will just join the wait list. The wait list is free. The course is, we'll announce the registration. I think it's gonna end up being a very reasonable price for 4 sessions, interacting with Barry and in community with other like-minded people who are just wanting, again, it doesn't matter what your religious affiliation is. You can be Christian, you could be Muslim, you could be Buddhist, you could be Jewish, you don't know what you are, you could be nothing, you don't have to even have that. Um, it's just really for you to dig deeper into your own faith and how to actually create practice around that. And that's what I think is missing. I know a lot of times when I'm working coaching clients, and the work I do, I do holistic coaching, so I'm always looking at the different dimensions of our wellness. So I'm looking at your physical, I'm looking at your mental, emotional, and I'm looking at your spiritual. And probably the most common thing people will tell me, oh, I believe this way, or this is how I believe. And I'm like, okay, how do you practice that? In other words, what is the things that you do to nurture and practice and grow that and develop that? And that's where people are like, oh, I go to church. It's like, okay. That's okay. All right. And what is the practice behind that though? Because attending church is not, that's a, it is a practice, I guess, but how is that really influencing, your day to day and all of that? So that's what I really love about it.
Yeah.
We do have Gina in the audience. Hi, Gina, saying hello, guys. Great topic. Thank you, Gina, for coming in this space. And so we also, before we ask, we have one more question. One more question. We do want, though, to encourage people, even if that's not a course that you're interested in, if you feel like you already kind of have a ritual or practice or daily understanding and you're already deepening it on your own, we still would love for you to become a part of our spiritual shift community. And so if you go to patreon.com/spiritual shift, you can join for free. You do not have to pay anything. As we get membership going in there, we'll be offering some free talks where we'll go a little bit deeper than what we're doing here on YouTube, and that'll be completely free. We don't want this to be a space where we're like, oh, I got to pay to play type of things. Obviously, if you're wanting more one-on-one though time, that's where we're asking, depending on coaching or whatever, or this class, that's where you get some fees. But please make sure that you just go over there. We're not doing much yet because we want to build. YouTube is kind of where we going. That's what we're doing right now, is to talk, just to build the community. Eventually, though, as we build the Patreon community, we'll be offering more on that side, including newsletters and talks. And eventually, we really want to do in-person things. And if you're in Chicago, I think we are going to start, just having some fellowship time, some time where we can, break bread, talk, connect, and again, just having that sense of community. And then the only last thing I want to put on here before I ask my last question, oh, that's my thing there, is if you want to email us, if you're like, I have some questions, I didn't want to put it in the comments when Barry said this or you said that, what did you mean, or whatever, or can you give me a resource? Just email spiritualshift33@gmail. Okay. And that's just a regular old Gmail. So we would love to hear from you that way. Obviously, you can also put some things in the comments. So, anything to add with any of those things before I ask our last question?
No, I think that was awesome.
Okay. All right. All right. So, again, our topic tonight, move this out the way. That's our email. Is, when did God become a man? Okay, so my last question. My last question. Which one do I do? What are some differences you think between viewing God as a man and seeing God as beyond gender or form? So, in other words, well, I'll just leave it there. What are some differences between seeing God as a man versus seeing God beyond some kind of gender form?
Yeah. Some differences. Well, if you see God just as a man, then you're missing a whole other half of, in my opinion, the God concept. you know, if the God concept, if you're gonna make God a man, then if you're gonna anthropomorphize the God concept, you're missing half of it. You're missing half
Okay.
of it. You're just saying that God is a man. Um, so in the Bible, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right?
Mhm.
So just by saying in the beginning, God, so that's an assumption that God is the God that's creating is just a man.
Mm.
But then it says created. Well, the creation part that we are very familiar with here in this reality is that a man and a woman come together, do a little something, and then creation happens, and then the woman actually births the creation. The man adds his piece, the woman provides her piece, and then something results 9 months later. So when you say, oh, God created, and then you don't add the feminine part to that,
Mm,
you get lost. You're in a conundrum. At least in my book, you're in a conundrum. And then it says, God, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Well, the heaven is the domain of the God part. The earth is the domain of the goddess.
mm,
So there again, you have the male and the female, but you're only saying that the male created the male and it's just a problem. It's a problem for me.
yeah.
So that's the problem with that's the difference. I think so. So you can go beyond just the male and the female and just think of God as consciousness, and that's fine. That's definitely a way that you can do it. Um, but there's, like I said, there isn't a problem making God with human characteristics a man, but you can't make him a man if you don't have God as a woman either. The only
Mm,
problem with that is that if you make God a man, there has to be a female counterpart, or
mm.
else how do you
How do
create?
you create? How do you create? Well, I mean, you're saying something, and this is a whole new segment. But I want to add to this concept of, God, when you say heavens and earth, heaven meaning the air. And when you think of the elements, the air is what's considered and if you just study elemental well-being and elemental things, air is a more masculine, not genderized, not men masculine meaning extroverted, action, active, do.
Right, right,
Whereas earth is a more feminine, it's the feminine element, and feminine not meaning a girl, but feminine meaning receive, stability, fertile ground,
right.
space
It's the
for
principle.
fertility. Right.
It's the
And
principles of, right. Go ahead.
right, exactly. No, exactly. And so how these things work together to co-create. And so these other elements we have in nature, water, rain, fire, these things all are coming together to create. And so it's important. I think there's so many sides of this thing, this concept in terms of, we have to start seeing God, goddess. We have to start seeing God, like you said, the laws, and just this broader understanding. And I think, I'll say this as my last thing, and then I'll let you say your kind of last thing before we click off here. um I just want, if there's nothing else that resonates for you with what we've talked about, please just be willing to be open to understanding God in a potentially different way. Just be open to that. I say different and more expansive, in my opinion, because the world is changing so fast, and if we continue to see God as a dude who's only going to help you out on the crisis line, you're going to be incredibly frustrated, challenged, and really feel very small as the world is doing its thing. Whereas if you can begin to see God as God, goddess, as expansive, as inside, outside, as the world is doing this, you'll see that this relationship will give you so much more. So that's my opinion. Yours before we
Go
any
ahead.
last minute
That was
anything, any
that.
last minute thing you want to be able to say before we
Yeah,
kind of
that
sign
was
off?
that was awesome. That was awesome. Thank you for that
Welcome.
offering. I would say that we are fantastical, fantastical beings. Fantastical. I don't even know if that's a word.
It
We're
is
fantastic.
yes,
Is that a
today
word?
it is. I don't know.
Fant-
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
fantastical in the Bible, and put it into Bible words. It says that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. So we are so much more than what we have been led to believe. Um, but to get to that so much more, that fantasticalness, we have to begin to see ourselves on the path to becoming little G's.
Mm.
And to do that, you have to think of, like, you have to put yourself on the path to be a little G, to be a little
Little
God,
g meaning God, yeah, with a
a
small
little
g, yeah,
God.
G-O-D, yeah, mhm,
Yeah, a
mhm,
little God or a little goddess.
mhm,
All
mhm,
right.
mhm,
And
mhm.
then and then balance the two within yourself, which is part of our mission, is to balance our feminine and our masculine together inside of ourselves, to master our God and our goddess inside of ourselves.
Mm, mm,
So, to get to that fantastical beingness, you have to put yourself on that path so that you can
mm,
become a little G or a little goddess, and then balance those two within yourself so that you can be
absolutely.
amazing. So that's it.
I love that. I'm a goddess and a god. Little g, little g. Yes, I agree. That was wonderful. Thank you. Well, this was fun. I hope that people. I always have fun. I could talk about this stuff forever. It's so interesting. It's so compelling. I appreciate you so much, for sharing all that you shared. Again, everyone, we'll be back again next Sunday, probably around the same time. It seems like this 5 p.m. Central Time works for our
Works.
schedules.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll be, and we'll have a new question. When did God and da da da? I don't know. You got to come back. I don't know. But it will be something around this whole idea of the God concept. And so if you're enjoying this again, please subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, please like. If you're watching on Facebook, also like on YouTube. Make sure you are subscribed to both our Spiritual Shift YouTube, which I will put that up, and then we're going to get ready to go. Our Spiritual Shift YouTube is at Spiritual Shift 33. I think we've got 5 whopping subscribers. Please, you can subscribe to Kenya MJ Music and Spiritual Shift 33. You can do both.
That, that's
I am
good.
it is.
Hi.
It's we're gonna grow. It took me
Help
only
us
12
help
years
us
to
get
get to 1,000. I finally hit a
help us
thousand. Praise the
help us get
Lord.
to what? Help us get to 50. Help us
Let's
get to
get
50.
to 10, okay? And then after we get to 10, then we're going to get to 25, and then we're going to get to 50. Yes. So we're going to do it in increments like that. So yeah, that's so go over there to that to make sure you subscribe. We only will right now be posting kind of these lives there, but eventually, and Barry has some videos already there for you to check out that are a little bit more informative. He's going to eventually be putting more content on that channel as well. So that's it, my love. We're gonna sign off, and
All right.
yeah. So you guys be good, be a blessing. Say something, babe. You want to wrap
All
up?
right. So yeah, remember, love is the way, always, and we'll see you next time. Thank you so
We'll
much
see you guys
for
next
hanging out.
time. You guys be good. All right, take care. Bye.
Bye bye.